Good morning, friends. Today I am here with friction part 1 of 8th standard. Today we are going to discuss force of friction, factors affecting friction, causes of friction, types of friction. Friction is sometimes useful. So let us start the session. Have you observed that when you stop pedaling a bicycle, after some times it gradually slow down and finally stop? You might have also observed when a ball is rolling on the ground, also gradually slow down and then finally stop. Now the question arises how this happens. What is the reason behind it? It is only due to the force of friction. So let us see what is force of friction. Force of friction is the force that opposes the motion of any object over the surface. It means that it always acts opposite to the direction of the motion. Force of friction always acts between the object and the surface. In the given figure, you may observe that frictional force or force of friction is opposite to the direction of the motion, and the motion is always towards the direction of the applied force. In this figure, you can visualize that rolling ball will comes to rest due to frictional force or force of friction after some time. This figure indicates that if we stop pedaling, then the bicycle comes to rest after some times. Now let us see what are the factors which affect friction. Force of friction depends upon two factors. What are they? First is nature of the surface in contact, means smoothness or roughness of the surfaces and how hard the surface press together. In this figure, you may see that when the surface is smooth, then the friction is less. And when the surface is rough, then friction is more. This figure indicates about the applied force and force of friction. You may see here that both forces are acting in opposite direction. Now it is about causes of friction. Friction is due to the interlocking of irregularities between the two objects which are in contact. Those surfaces which appears very smooth have a large number of minute irregularities on them, and irregularities on the two surfaces lock into one another. Whereas on rough surface, there are a larger number of irregularities. Thus, the force of friction is greater if the surfaces are rough. Now, let us see about types of friction. Force of friction is classified into three main types. What are they? They are static friction, sliding friction, and rolling friction. Let us see what is the differences between them. I'd like to ask one question to you. What is easier for you? Either to move any heavy box from rest or to move it when it is already in motion? The answer will be the box which is in already motion, it is easier to move. Why it is like that? It is due to static friction. So static friction is the friction exerted on an object which is at rest. That is why we feel heavy or we feel uneasy to move the box which is at rest. Sliding friction is the friction exerted when an object slides over the surface, whereas rolling friction is the friction exerted when an object rolls over a surface. Suppose when we want or when any object starts sliding, then the points on its surface do not get enough time to interlock into the contact points on the floor. Thus, sliding friction is slightly less than the static friction, and rolling friction is less than the sliding friction as well as static friction. So, static friction is more than sliding and rolling friction due to more interlocking between the surface and the object. In the given figure, you may observe static friction. It also shows the static friction. In this figure, you may observe about sliding friction. Here also you can observe the sliding friction. It is about rolling friction. This figure also indicates about rolling friction. Now we will discuss about how friction is sometimes useful. Friction is a necessary evil in our daily life or day-to-day activities. Let us discuss here about few usefulness of friction. It is possible to hold a tumbler due to friction between the hand and the tumbler. Due to friction, we are able to walk on ground. Writing with a pen or a pencil on paper is only due to friction between the pen or pencil and the paper. When your teacher is writing with chalk on blackboard, its rough surface rubs off some chalk particle which stick to the blackboard. So it is possible to write on a blackboard due to friction between the chalk and the board. Friction between the tires and the road helps automobiles to move on road. Without friction, no building could be constructed. So you might have observed when there is construction of building. This figure depicts about the usefulness of the friction. That is, friction helps to hold, helps to walk, helps to write on paper, helps to write on board. Without friction, these activities are not able to do. This figure also indicates about friction. Automobiles run on the road. Friction helps in construction of building. So this is about the usefulness of friction. This was the last topic. So this is all about today's session. Thank you. For any kind of doubts, please write your question in comment section.